In this section, we're going to go through Module 1 review question, which is all around core data concepts.
So the first question is, how is the data in a relational table organized? Is it based on pages and paragraphs? Definitely not. Is it based on headers and footers? No. So the correct answer is rows and columns. Structured data is typically tabular data that is represented by rows and columns in a database table. Let's look at question number 2. Which of the following is an example of the unstructured data? Is it an employee table with columns employee ID, employee name, and employee designation? Definitely not. Is it a table within SQL Server database? No. Is it audio and video files? Absolutely correct. So the correct answer is audio and video files. Typically, audios and video files are unstructured data. Let's look at question number 3. What of the following is an example of a streaming data set? Is it a list of employees working for a company? Definitely not. That is static. Or a little dynamic, but not exactly static. Is it sales data from the past month? Definitely not. Is it the data from sensor feeds? Absolutely correct. Sensor and device feeds are examples of streaming data sets as they are published continuously. Let's look at question number 4. Which one of the following tasks is a role of a database administrator? Is it identifying data quality issues? No. Is it creating dashboards and reports? Definitely not. So the correct answer is backing up and restoring databases. Database administrators will back up the database and will restore the database when the data is lost or corrupted. Let's look at question number 5. Which of the following tools is a visualization and reporting tool? Is it SQL Server Management Studio? No. Is it SQL? Definitely not. So the correct answer is Power BI. Power BI is a standard tool for creating rich graphical dashboards and reports. Let's go through the next question. Which one of the following roles is not a data job role? Is it database administrator? Definitely not. Is it data analyst? Definitely a data job. Is it systems administrator? Absolutely correct. Systems administrators deal with infrastructure components such as network, virtual machine, and other physical devices in a data center. Let's look at question number 7. Which one of the following statement is a characteristics of relational database? So I'm going to read out these statements to see which one makes sense. All data must be stored as character strings. Definitely doesn't make any sense. Different rows in the same table can contain different columns. Definitely not the right answer. A row in a table represents a single entity. Absolutely correct. Each row in a table contains the data for a single entity in that table. That is called relational database. That is a characteristic of a relational database. Let's look at question number 8. What is an index? Is it a structure comprising rows and columns that you use for storing data? Definitely not. Is it a virtual table based on result set of a query? Definitely not. So the correct answer is a structure that enables you to locate rows in a table quickly using an indexed value. You create indexes to help speed up queries. The whole reason of using indexes is to speed up queries. Let's look at the next question. Which one of the following statements is a benefit of using PaaS service instead of an on-premises system to run your database management system? Is it increased day-to-day management cost? Definitely not. Is it increased functionality? Definitely not. So the correct answer is increased scalability. PaaS solutions enable you to scale up and out without having to procure your own hardware. Let's look at question number 10. Which of the following services should you use to implement a non-relational database? Is it a Gremlin API? No. Is it Azure SQL database? Absolutely not. So the correct answer is Azure Cosmos DB. Azure Cosmos DB support several common models, non-relational database, include key value stores, graph database, document databases, and column family stores. Which of the following is a characteristics of non-relational databases? Is it a non-relational database contain tables with flat fixed column records? No. Is it non-relational database require you to use data normalization technique to reduce data duplication? No. So the correct answer is non-relational databases are either schema free or have relaxed schemas. Each entity in a non-relational database only has the field it needs, and these fields can vary between different entities. Let's look at question number 12. Wow, that's a long question. You are building a system that monitors the temperature throughout a set of office blocks and sets the air conditioning in each room in each block to maintain a pleasant ambient temperature. Your system has to manage the air conditioning in several thousand buildings spread across the country or region, and each building typically contains at least 100 air conditioned rooms. What type of NoSQL data store is most appropriate for capturing the temperature data to enable it to be processed quickly? So, is it write the temperature to the blob in Azure Blob Storage? Definitely not. Is it column family database? That doesn't work either. So, the correct answer is a key value store. A key value store can ingest large volume of data rapidly. A thermometer in each room can send the data to the database. So let's look at question number 13. What is data ingestion? Is it the process of transforming raw data into models containing meaningful information? No. Is it analyzing data for anomalies? No. So the correct answer is capturing raw data streaming from various sources and storing it. The purpose of data ingestion is to retrieve raw data and save it as quickly as possible. And the data can be processed and analyzed. Let's look at question number 14. Which one of the following visuals display the major contributors to a selected result or value? Is it metric chart? No. It is definitely not column and bar chart. The correct answer is key influencers. A key influencer chart displays the major contributors to a selected result or value. And key influencers are a great choice to help you understand the factors that influence a key metric. Let's look at the last question. Which type of analytics helps answer questions about what has happened in the past? Is it predictive analytics? No. Is it prescriptive analytics? Definitely not. So the correct answer is descriptive analytics. Descriptive analytics help answers question about what happened.
The second module is all around how to work with relational data on Azure. So in this section, we're going to go through module 2 review questions.
So let's look at the first question. Which deployment requires the fewest changes when migrating an existing SQL Server on-premises solution? Is it Azure SQL Database Managed Instance? Definitely not. Is it Azure SQL Database Single Database? No. So the correct answer is SQL Server running on virtual machine. The SQL Server running on virtual machine supports anything on-premises solution has. Let's look at the question number 2. Which of the following statement is true about SQL Server running on a virtual machine? So I'm going to read out these statements to find out which one is the right one. You must install and maintain the software for the database management system yourself, but backups are automated. Definitely not. That is not a correct statement. The second statement is software installation and maintenance are automated, but you must do your own backups. This is again completely wrong. This is not automated. So the last statement is you are responsible for all software installation and maintenance and performing backups. Absolutely correct. So the SQL Server running on a virtual machine, you are responsible for patching and backing up. Let's look at the third question. Which of the following statement is true about Azure SQL database? Scaling up doesn't take effect until you restart the database. No. Scaling out doesn't take effect until you restart the database. Not true. Scaling up and out will take effect without restarting the SQL database. Absolutely correct. You can scale up or out without interrupting the usage of the database. Let's look at question number 4. When using an Azure SQL database managed instance, what is the simplest way to implement backups? Is it manual configuration of the SQL Server? Definitely not. Is it create a scheduled task to backup? No. So the correct answer is backups are automatically handled. A managed instance comes with the benefit of automatic backups and the ability to restore to a point in time. All right, so let's go through the last question. What is the best way to transfer the data in a PostgreSQL database running on premises into a database running Azure database for PostgreSQL service? Is it export the data from the on-premises database and import it manually into the database running in Azure? Definitely not. Is it upload a PostgreSQL database backup file to the database running in Azure? No. So the correct answer is use the Azure Database Migration Service or DMA. The Database Migration Service offers the safest way to push your on-premises PostgreSQL database into Azure.
In this section, we are going to go through Module 3 Knowledge Check. This is all about how to work with non-relational data on Azure.
Okay, let's look at the first question. What are the elements of an Azure table storage key? Is it table name and column name? Definitely not. Is it a row number? No. So the correct answer is partition key and row key. The partition key identifies the partition in which row is located, and the rows in each partition are stored in a row key order. Let's look at the second question. When should you use a blob and when should you use a page blob? Is it when you use a blob for unstructured data that requires random access to perform read and write, and use a page blob for discrete object that rarely change? Not correct. Is it when you use a blob for active data stored using the hot access tier, and a page blob for data stored using cool and archive data access tier? No. So the correct answer is use a page block for blobs that require random read and write access, and use a blob for discrete objects that changes infrequently. Let's look at question number 3. Why might you use Azure File Storage? Is it to share files that are stored on premises with users located at another site? No. Is it to store large binary data files containing images or other unstructured data? Definitely not. It is to enable users at different sites to share files. So that's the correct answer. You can create file share in Azure File Storage, upload files to the file share, and grant access to the file share to remote users. Let's look at question number 4. Wow, that's a long question. You are building a system that monitors the temperature throughout a set of office blocks and sets the air conditioning in each room in each block to maintain a pleasant ambient temperature. Your system has to manage the air conditioning in several thousand buildings spread across the country and region, and each building typically contains at least 100 air-conditioned rooms. What type of NoSQL data store is most appropriate for capturing the temperature data to enable it to be processed quickly? Is it write the temperature to the blob in Azure Blob Storage? No. Is it to store the data in a file stored in the share created using Azure File Storage? Definitely not. So the correct answer is send the data to the Azure Cosmos DB database and use Azure functions to process the data. So the Cosmos DB can ingest large volumes of data rapidly. A thermometer in each room can send the data to a Cosmos DB database, and you can arrange for an Azure function to run as each item is stored. The function can examine the temperature and kick off a remote process to configure the air conditioning in the room. Let's look at question number 5. What is provisioning? Is it turning a service to improve performance? Definitely not. Is it for providing other users access to external service? No. So the correct answer is provisioning is the act of running series of tasks that a service provider performs to create and configure a service. In Azure, you must provision a service before you can use it. What is a security principle? Is it a named collection of permissions that can be granted to a service, such as the ability to use the service to read, write, and delete data? Definitely not. Is it a set of resources managed by a service to which you can grant access? No. So the correct answer is an object that represents a user, group, service, or managed identity that is requesting access to Azure resource. Azure Authentication uses security principle to help determine whether a request to access a service should be granted. All right, let's look at the last question. Which of the following is an advantage of using multi-region replication with Cosmos DB? Is it data will always be consistent in every region? No. Is it increased security for your data? Definitely not. The correct answer is availability is increased. Replication improves availability. If one region becomes inaccessible, the data is still available in other regions.
The last section is Module 4. Module 4 is Analytics Workload on Azure. So we're going to go through review questions on the fourth module.
So the first question is, when should you use Azure Synapse Analytics? Is it to enable large number of users to query analytics data? No. Is it to create dashboards from tabular data? No. So the correct answer is to perform very complex queries and aggregations. Azure Synapse Analytics is suitable for performing compute-intensive tasks such as these. Let's look at question number 2. What is the purpose of data ingestion? Is it to perform complex data transformation over data received from external sources? No. Is it to visualize the results of data analysis? No. So the correct answer is to capture data flowing into a warehouse system as quickly as possible. Data ingestion can receive data from multiple sources, including streams, and must run quickly enough so that it doesn't lose any incoming data. Let's look at question number 3. What is the primary difference between a data lake and data warehouse? Is it a data lake contains structured information, but a data warehouse holds raw business data? No. Is it a data stored in a data lake is dynamic, but information stored in data warehouse is static? Definitely not. So the correct answer is data lake holds raw data, but a data warehouse holds structured information. A data warehousing solution converts the raw data in a data lake into meaningful business information in a data warehouse. Which component of an Azure Data Factory can be triggered to run data ingestion task? It's definitely not CSV and linked service. So the correct answer is pipeline. Pipelines can be triggered to run activities for ingesting data. When might you use Polybase? Is it to orchestrate activities in Azure Data Factory? No. Is it to ingest streaming data using Azure Databricks? Definitely not. So the correct answer is to query data from external sources from Azure SQL database, because this is the purpose of Polybase. Let's look at question number 6. Which of these services can be used to ingest data into Azure Synapse Analytics? Is it Azure Active Directory? No. It's definitely not Power BI. So the correct answer is Azure Data Factory. Azure Data Factory can be used to ingest data into Azure Synapse Analytics from almost any source. Let's look at question number 7. You have a large amount of data held in files in Azure Data Lake storage. You want to retrieve the data in these files and use it to populate tables held in Azure Synapse Analytics. Which processing option is most appropriate? Is it Azure Synapse Spark Pool? No. Is it to use Azure Synapse Link to connect to Azure Data Lake storage and download the data? Completely wrong. So the correct answer is Synapse SQL Pool. You can use Polybase from SQL Pool to connect to the files in Azure Data Lake as external tables and then ingest the data. Let's look at question number 8. Which of the components of the Azure Synapse Analytics allow you to train AI models using Azure ML? Is it Synapse Studio? No, it's definitely not Synapse Pipelines. So the correct answer is Synapse Spark. You would use a notebook to ingest and shape data and then use Spark ML and Azure ML to train models with it. Let's look at question number 9. In Azure Databricks, how do you change the language a cell uses? Is it to wrap the command in the cell with the language? No. Is it to change the notebook language before writing the commands? Not right. So the correct answer is the first line in the cell is language. For example, %scala. Each cell can start with the language definition. Let's look at question number 10. What is the common flow of activity in Power BI? So the correct answer is bring data into Power BI desktop and create a report and share it with the Power BI service. View and interact with reports and dashboards in the service and Power BI mobile. So this is the correct flow. The Power BI service lets you view and interact with reports and dashboards, but doesn't let you shape data. Let's look at question number 11. Which of the following are building blocks of Power BI? It's definitely not tiles, dashboard, database, and mobile devices, and it's not Visual Studio, C# and JSON files. The correct answer is visualizations, datasets, reports, and dashboard tiles. Why? Because building blocks of Power BI are visualizations, datasets, reports, dashboards, and tiles. And the last question is a collection of ready-made visuals pre-arranged in dashboards and reports is called what in Power BI? It is called as an app, because an app is a collection of ready-made visuals pre-arranged in dashboards and reports. You can get apps that connect to many online services from the app source. Until I see you on the next certification tutorial, you guys take care.